All right, and here we are with the Real Stories of Success podcast. I'm Ryan Herget.
I'm Austin Larr.
And today we are going to really break down what does it take to be successful as a loan officer. My buddy Austin here, the very first time I ever worked with Austin, this is back in 2013, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And had an agent in my office refer me to him, and she's like, he's awesome. Shannon Gilbert, actually. Yeah. She referred me to you, and she's like, he's awesome. He'll call you back right away. And that stuck with me. And that is one thing, man, that I so appreciate about how you work is you answer your phone all the time, and you're just an extraordinary business guy, and you do the things that it takes to be successful so well. So, man, I'm excited to break your story down today.
Hey, I'm excited to tell the story, and you just said it right there. It's so simple. It's so easy. And we'll kind of go into that today about all of that stuff. I'm not the smartest guy, man, but I'm a hustler. I'll get out and do it. Yeah.
I love it. So let's start at the beginning. So kind of walk me through what brought you into the real estate lending world, kind of what originally attracted you there, and kind of walk us through it. From the beginning. Sure.
Like a lot of people, I actually bought a house, had no idea what I was doing, right? Bought a house, and it was back in the mid 2000s when anyone could get a loan. I was bartending, right? And ended up selling that house for about 25% more than I bought it for about a year and a half earlier, right?
That's fantastic.
I walked out of that closing, and I was like, man, this is so easy. I should do this for a living, right? Just like a lot of other people. And so that's what really got the bug, right? Not knowing that there were so many other things that went into it and that kind of thing. But got a job at a builder like yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And was selling houses. And when that builder went out of business, I went over to the lending side, and I've been there since 2009 now.
So tell us about that. You're one of few people that really have experience on both sides, helping people throughout the buying process, working for a builder, but then also as you transition to the lending side. So tell us about what that transition was like for you, and then, kind of walk us through what were the things that it took you to really get going once you made that transition into the lending business. Sure.
I like to tell the story that I closed one loan in December of 2009. Right. So December of 2009, I think my take home pay after taxes was maybe $300 or so. And so never losing that focus still now. Right. Always remembering back to December of 2009. And speaking of Shannon Gilbert, it was actually her deal.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Guy was a manager at Applebee's, but I'll never forget that one. But the transition itself, there's a lot of similarities on both sides, the real estate side and the lending side. It's really about relationships for me. And for the real estate agents out there, it's about relationships. And so when I really understood that, the networking piece and the relationships piece, there was so much correlation between the two sides of me selling houses or me coming to the lending side that when I embraced that and I really took on, hey, I need to set 2 appointments a week, right? I need to meet with every client I possibly can, to try and get their next refinance or their friend or whatever that is. And the more people I can get my face in front of, the better.
That's it. So what I just heard you saying right there is, you just took the fundamental principles of, okay, I have to talk to people about what I do every day.
Yep.
And you just literally have done that every single day since then, to the point to where now you're closing on average well over 1,000 loans a year.
Yeah.
So tell us about
that. And that's my
growth.
Team too. I do want to give them a shout out, man. I have such a great team. So that is just, we've been very lucky. We've got very good referral partners. Yep. And I have a really, really solid team behind me. But yes, my team has closed about 1,000 loans a year. And we're going to continue to keep that trend going too.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah.
So now for somebody listening, that may sound completely overwhelming. Like, holy heck, I'm never, ever going to be able to do something like that.
Yeah.
But what I love about your story is you started with that very first deal. It starts with one for everybody.
Yep.
So kind of take us through that journey. What were some of the things that maybe you had to learn to grow to that? Because you don't go from 1 to 1,000 in 1 year. That obviously takes time. That takes growth. What I'm interested in kind of learning from you, Austin, is tell us about those challenges. Tell us about maybe some of the struggles that you had to overcome to really get that business and your production going.
Sure. So you and I have talked about this. You are too. I'm a process guy. Right?
Definitely.
I get a process down, and I would highly suggest anybody out there, if you don't have a process, that is the first thing. I don't care if your process is imperfect. You have to have a process, right? So lead comes in, something happens, right? just like we talked about, getting two referral partner applications in a week, right? Coffees, lunches, whatever that is, right? That's part of the process. Going a file going into processing, what that looks like, that there's a process. And heck, every Tuesday morning having a podcast with you, it's part of my process, right? And so I'm always tweaking. There's always something changing, and I'm always trying something new, right? And
I love
so
that.
and so when you try that new thing, not all of it works out. Some of it does, some of it doesn't. But once that one thing does work out, make it part of your process, and then continue that all the time, right? And so you've got from A to Z always going, and little bits and pieces are ones you take out and fill new stuff in, and getting that process down perfectly is what has been really my success secret.
I can so appreciate that. I'm going to share a quick story, but sometimes it's easy to forget when you do have your processes in place, things go according to plan. And I had a really good friend of mine that we're helping with a house right now. And a lot of times when you get comfortable with people, you skip steps 3 through 7, which are all the foundational pieces of setting expectations, letting them know what's going to happen before it happens, because they're my buddy. You don't have to do that. And once again, it kind of bit me in the butt. It's like, oh my gosh, now they're a little frustrated with me, and the fingers all point right back because I didn't go through that process that I know well. I teach people all the time, but yet you skip a couple steps and now all of a sudden you've got problems that you don't expect. And I think that's something that, you have really taken a really close look at every piece of your business. I mean, I've seen how you work, and literally from the time that file goes into underwriting, you know what's supposed to happen. You know what everything is, and how that works, and you just work it to where it's so efficient. And that's what allows you to do, you and your team to do 1,000+ deals a year, because man, there's so much that goes into this. So tell us a little bit more about maybe, some of the things that you've done to grow specifically. Like you mentioned the networking side of things, but how are you getting in front of that many people to have that many conversations?
Sure. And it snowballs, right? I do want to go back for a second. I've actually been that guy before too. You're doing your friend's loan, right? And you skip over, and I learned really, really fast that I say to them, hey, I already know you know this, but X, Y, and Z is going to happen. I say that all the time to when you're doing the buddy loan, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to steal that.
Hey, yeah. So, so it snowballs, right? Back to your question. One loan turns into 2, turns into 3, 3 turns into 4, and it's all because I'm doing the same process with each same loan, right? So if you do a really good job on your first 3 loans, well, you probably found a new referral partner somewhere in that process, right? Whether it's the real estate agent, whether it's the buyer, whether it's the listing agent, right? So somewhere in there, you probably found, if you did 3 deals, that's 9 potential people, maybe depending on how many buyers you had, maybe 10, 12 potential people that you could go back out and reach out to for that next deal.
Well, and truly, just to take that one step further, you had a listing last spring, so a year ago right now, and you were the lender for the buyer. And in that case, one of the things that, again, you're not just working for one client, there's 3 potential people there that you're serving, and maybe even more. Yeah. And you kept everybody in communication throughout the entire process. Me, who I wasn't even your client, we happen to know one another. Yeah. But that's where the magic lied, is you didn't just look at this one opportunity to help somebody, but how can I do it the best I possibly can so it creates that impact for all parties involved?
I personally don't do this, but I love this thing, and I should probably make this part of my process. I've actually heard of loan officers calling the actual seller themselves. So they talk to the listing agent first and see if that's okay, but introducing themselves to the actual seller and just saying, hey, I'm going to keep you up on the process, right? And who knows, they're probably getting another loan. You would think, right? They're selling their house. They're probably getting another loan, or they might know somebody else. So again, it's just as many people as you can get your face in front of or talk to on the phone. I mean, that's really the key.
Got it. So kind of shifting gears a little bit, one of the things you mentioned, when we were first getting started here, is the hustle dynamic. Yeah. And that's something that, I think so few people really appreciate everybody believes they work hard, but your definition of work hard, and we were talking about this with Matt, a few weeks ago, but your definition of work hard is so much different than most other people's. Your ability to respond quickly is it just exceeds most other people's standards. So tell us about that. A lot of the foundational pieces that you have used that don't cost any money to really help maximize and grow your business quickly.
Yeah, we talk about speed of response all the time, right? In our team, in our Fairway group, we talk about speed of response. And a perfect example is when someone new is coming to us and saying, "Hey, I want to be a loan officer." Say, "That's awesome, man. Being a loan officer, there are so much good things that happen in this industry, right? There's the freedom, and it's not 9 to 5, and all of those kind of things. But then you have to remind them it isn't 9 to 5, right? It is not 9 to 5. And so when an email comes in, a text comes in, if it's Saturday at 3, you got to respond because business is happening all around you. And you and I have said this before, but I love the phrase, if your phone's ringing, pick it up. If your phone's not ringing, pick it up.
I've stolen that and repeated that 10 times in the last few weeks because it is so applicable to just success in any area. Yeah. If your phone's ringing, pick it up. If your phone's not ringing,
and actually, I stole that from a loan officer out in Phoenix, John Tobias. Shout out to you. But yeah, I heard that for the first time, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so applicable to our industry, right? And so when we're talking to new people that want to come on and be a loan officer, and they see all this money that people are making, and nice houses and cars and all those kind of crazy things, we say, listen, that's great, but it's not that easy, right? You've got to be available all the time, and I'm lucky enough to have a very understanding wife. So
it's important.
So it is, and so we tell that new candidate, go home and tell your spouse about this conversation that we're having, because things are going to change. Things are going to change for you.
So tell me about that. I think something that so many people do take for granted is, they're like, oh, well, I can work 40, 50 hours a week, but that doesn't just exist, working between 8 and 4 or 5 o'clock at night, or maybe a few hours on the weekend. Yep. It's so much more than that. So how do you draw the line between turning it off and still being highly effective for your customers, the people on your team now? Tell me about that, because that's a difficult balance I know a lot of people struggle with in any sales industry.
And I don't know that I'm wired probably a lot like you. You and I have figured out that we have a ton in common, but I'm just wired, right? If something's in my inbox, I need to get it out of my inbox. That is just the way I personally work.
Sure.
And I can't relax until I get back to that person or whatever. I'd probably stop making phone calls somewhere around 7:30 at night. Mm-hmm. I'll still probably watch my email until around 9-ish. But, and then I have an hour and a half of just me watching whatever mindless TV just to make myself ready, again for the next day. And then I probably pick up the phone or emails or whatever around 8 o'clock-ish again the next day. So, and that's the same thing even on Saturday, Sundays. I'm still probably going to reply, right? Yeah. Unless I'm at a big family function or whatever that I just can't get to it. I will reply. It's speed of response. That is just, it's so ingrained in me. And you, like you said, it's free. It's absolutely free. And you and I were having this conversation too. A lot of times, so a buyer will have an issue, a realtor will have an issue, someone will have an issue, and if you don't get back to them right away and correct whatever their mindset is, that issue becomes so much bigger.
That's so the case, because think about it, when you're going through a process that, like real estate, which is infrequent, it's emotional, and it's expensive, man, that brings out some challenging dynamics with people. Yeah. And it brings out a lot of fear too, I feel, because they don't know. People don't go through this process every day like you or I do. And so they're concerned that, hey, my lender didn't get that, or did they get those documents that they told me that they had to have? Well, if they don't respond confirming simple little things like that, that leaves so much fear and anxiety with your customers, which then just kind of downgrades their experience. Yeah. And by getting back to people quickly, it just changes everything.
I had a buyer leave a voicemail last night. I mean, this is a perfect example. 8:15 at night, I get a voicemail on my office phone, which I've already left, right? And it's her almost crying.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? This has been a perfect process for her. What is happening, right? tell my wife, hey, I'm going to pick up the phone real quick. We can go back to watching old Friends episodes here in a second. And pick up the phone, and she had misread the loan estimate, and she thought she had to bring $8,000 more to closing, right? That could have gone all night. That could have, in the morning, she would have called everybody she knew. Yep. It would have been a huge issue, but I picked up the phone and called her right back, and she was very thankful.
Yeah, and by morning, you just said it. That turns into a fire that you have to put out for an hour and a half the next morning because now she's talked to everybody. And, and you can't blame her because she doesn't know. She doesn't know. So kind of shifting gears, on that a little bit, one of the things that is so important to me about this show is giving people very practical, actionable takeaways that they can just start employing right away. And you've already given us a good handful of them. What are some of the things that I guess let me reframe that question a little bit. You talk about consistency. One of the things that just absolutely just comes from you is you show up on time, you do things the way you say you're going to do them, and you do them every single day. Tell us about some of the things that you are doing every day. You mentioned talking to people. You mentioned meeting with 2 different, real estate agents a week. Tell me about the day-to-days. What are the things you are doing to be consistent that have really helped fuel your growth?
Sure. Well, one thing that's can anybody out there, I don't care who you are, can do, and I am late to the boat on this one, but about 6 months ago, I said, hey, listen, Austin, it's time to start working out, and it's time to start eating right. So every single morning I get up before this show, and I go out and I work out every morning, and it just starts your day off right. So we, in this show, we'd like to talk to you not just about the sales, but almost about kind of life and in general how to be a better person, right? And so that's helped me a ton. To get ahead of the day. Then I've already time blocked certain parts of my day, right? Whether it's prospecting phone calls, whether it's a meeting with my team, whether it's planning our next event. We do a lot of events that we can network and that kind of thing. So I'm time blocking throughout the day on what I can actually be doing. And then it's also leaving enough time to not overschedule myself on certain things so I can be getting back to buyers. And if I can't be getting back to buyers, then I've also got somebody on the team that can take over emails and phones and those kind of things so people aren't waiting, because if we're not answering the phone, somebody else will.
Absolutely.
The Quickens of the world will easily pick up the phone because they've got a call center, right? And so we need to be available as much as possible throughout the day. And so that's really how we approach day-to-day type things.
Got it. So tell me about that a little bit more. You mentioned time blocking for prospecting calls. That is something I know most people in the sales world struggle with because it's the least favorite part of everybody's day. But preceding that, you also talked about just getting yourself right every day. You're doing the things, you're eating right, you're working out, which I can certainly attest to. It reframes your mind completely to where, oh my gosh, you're doing what you need to do. You feel better. You have more energy naturally versus drinking 14 cups of coffee or 9 energy drinks a day,
as we're sitting here drinking
I do love and support,
coffee.
Which I totally love and support my energy drink. It's my coffee in the morning, but I digress. But those activities though, because it is so easy to fill your day with quote unquote busy work. And oh my gosh, I'm so busy. If I talk to one real estate agent that says, oh my gosh, I'm so busy, I just want to punch myself in the face. It's like, no, you're not. Time block your day, do the things that are important versus just being busy to be busy. What are those activities that you're specifically time blocking, and kind of how are you doing that?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you one thing that I see a lot of loan officers out there do is they want to control a file from start to finish, right? And guys out there, guys and gals, don't let go. That is, I would say that's one of the biggest things I ever did was, you've got a process from A to Z. Get really good at like A, B, C, and D, and then let go, right? Let go and let your team, whoever that is, I don't care if you're a single loan officer, you've got one assistant or whoever, you still have a team because you've got processors, right? Yeah. So trust in your team. And so our biggest thing is once a file goes into processing, that processor's taking it from start to finish. If you put in a good file, right, and I'm talking, did a good application and have enough of the income docs in there, you should be able to just let go.
Yeah.
They'll call you back in if there's a fire, right? But let go, and then that allows you to go out and get more business. So now you're back at A, B, C, and D, and not really anything after that, right? And so the more, it's called green time, right? The more you can spend on green time and not so much chasing a condition or whatever that is, and here's the thing, it's really hard too, because that buyer's going to come back to you throughout the process and they're going to say, hey, what does this mean? Why do they need that? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm always the first one to say, let me not play middleman. Let's get you back with the processor. I'm always here to overlook and make sure everything's going okay. But let's have the processor explain that one to you, because that's really their job, is to get you closed on time. And then now I can go back to green time.
And now you're doing the things that are making you money, talking to people, going out there and doing what you do best, not micromanaging a file.
Correct.
Not sending out an email to, hey, I need that 2018 bank statement from June. You forgot that, that's things that you can train others to do. And quite frankly, others that probably do better than you anyway.
That is absolutely true. Because, we're sales guys. We're not the most detailed person always, right?
To say the least.
And processors usually are.
Definitely.
And again, those guys and gals out there, they're saying, well, I'm only a single loan officer. Well, when you're doing this and you're consistently doing this, you'd be amazed at how many more loans you get in, and now all of a sudden you need a loan officer assistant, and now all of a sudden you need a junior loan officer, and it's only because you did the same thing throughout your process every time.
I love that. Absolutely love that. So kind of take me through a little bit, shifting gears kind of one more time here before we wrap this up, but tell me about, when you're really working with clients, letting go of anything is very challenging for a lot of people, but what were some of those breakthrough moments for you that, when maybe, in the real estate world, where, an agent will go from helping 30 people a year to 80 people a year, or, from 80 to, I'm working with an agent out in California right now that's doing 120 units a year out there, which is just insane from a volume standpoint. But what were some of those breakthroughs for you? What were some of those, not necessarily years where things but what happened to create those, those breakthroughs? That makes sense.
Yeah. When I realized that, hey, I can't do all of this myself, it was probably maybe 2-3 years into the business. And I had gotten so busy that I remember telling my wife, I was like, well, I'm just going to work 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and then I'll work 6 hours on Saturdays and Sundays, and we'll hang out like Sunday afternoons. And she was like, nah, I don't think so.
That didn't sound like too good of a plan to her.
Yeah. She's like, I don't think so. And so almost out of necessity, I needed to come up with a process, right? Wow. And so I went and I hired my first person at that point. Train them. I've actually had some pretty good success with finding people outside of the industry a little bit and training them on how to do things. There's no, mortgage university out there, right? You can't get a degree in mortgages. And so we found, go find some really good people and train them on how to do this, right? And so all of a sudden, one person became 2, and 2 person became 3, and every 6 to 9 months we were kind of adding another piece, and it just kept growing and it kept growing. So I would say somewhere around that 12-ish or 13-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood is when I really started to see the fruits of my labor, when I started adding a person and adding a person and adding a person. And I had to give up a little bit to do that. And people, that's a hard thing for people to do. And I'm not saying, I had to give up this part of the loan process. I had to give up money.
Yeah.
Right? I had to give up some money.
Scary.
And it is scary for people. They don't want to give up money. And I can tell you that it has paid itself back tenfold since then, right? So if you're listening to this out there, be willing to give up a little to get a little. You got to invest in yourself. And I feel that way about marketing. I feel that way about growing a team. I feel that way about so many areas in our business. And that's where I see a lot of people kind of go wrong, is they're not willing to give up a little bit of money to ultimately make a little bit of money. And it's so funny. I don't even buy nice clothes really or anything, because I was like, I can't really use that. It doesn't matter. But I'm more than willing to spend a bunch of money on business related things. And my wife's like, that doesn't make any sense. You're frugal here and you spend here. I don't understand. So,
but you're doing just that. I feel you're investing in your business. You're investing in the people that are going to help you grow your business. I mean, you simply know where you're going, and people want to be a part of that. And that's exciting for a lot of people. And when you can provide a great structure, platform, and opportunity for growth like you have, man, things happen quickly. But circling back, you just said that, that growth really started to take off 2012, 2013. So for those listening, that's 3 years into your business. It took you 3 years to really achieve, some really great levels of success. And all throughout that time, you're obviously learning, you're growing, you're making mistakes. But 3 years is what it really took to get to that point. And then the next 3 years, I would imagine the growth really compounded after that and grew exponentially quicker.
It has, yeah. We've been very lucky to. We almost double each year, and we still continue to do that even now, which is really, really crazy. So it's been an awesome ride. I got to plug Fairway. We work for an amazing company. Been voted number one to work for 5 years in a row, which makes all the difference in the world. But yeah, it's been a good ride, and we're going to continue that day-to-day process.
I love it, man. Austin, before we kind of wrap this up, is there any other takeaways that anything up there in your mind that you're like, somebody getting started in this industry absolutely has to know this? Here's the thing you absolutely have to do, or maybe one or two things, doesn't have to be just one, that somebody getting into this business, or maybe somebody struggling in this business and not, they're a year in and they're not where they want to be at all. What would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
Well, I would recap a couple things that we've already talked about. Okay. Do all the things that are free. Right? Do the networking. It costs you a couple bucks to take someone to coffee, right? Yeah. Do all the networking you possibly can. I talk to all newbies that come into our office and want to work. It's as simple as setting 2 appointments a week. Literally 2 appointments a week. And if you can't get an appointment, you need to go make a random office visit, or you need to make 10 prospecting phone calls. I guarantee there's other loan officers in your new office that are more than willing to give you 10 prospects that they don't feel like they want to call that day, and you can share commissions on them. Make 10 prospecting phone calls for each one appointment, right? That's it. Get out there, and don't meet with the same person more than once a quarter, but meet with them once a quarter. Right?
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great, because I think so many people are like, well, how many times, should I meet with them? Should I take them out and go do this? At least for myself, I'm talking for myself. I get wrapped up in all the details. It's like, just go do it. Yeah. Just go talk to these people. They're normal human beings that have problems just like anybody else that perhaps you can help with. And so I love that.
There's other things too. It doesn't necessarily realtors. We love you guys, right? You guys are the best in the world.
Some of them. No.
And but there's CPAs out there and past client databases. There's so many other pillars. There's builders. There's so many pillars that you can make to drive leads in. There's technologies, right? The Zillows. Oh my gosh, yeah. Those kind of things of the world that you can utilize. So the people that are out there looking for it and doing it, you will be so successful in this industry. It isn't rocket science. You can do it. You just got to put in the work.
That's it. All right. So I was going to be done, but you just brought up another thought right there, and that's something I really want to hit on real quick. And that's the iBuyers, the Zillows, the Quicken Loans. The people that I think a lot, or the companies, I should say, that a lot of people in our industry feel are, they're taking over. The technology's trying to take over our industry. I don't really feel that's the case. I definitely think they're helping fill a void where maybe loan officers don't respond quickly and don't do what they say they're going to do all the time, or real estate agents don't provide information as transparently as they could, which is why Zillow came into existence to begin with. How do you feel about that, though? I mean, how do you respond to the loan officer that's like, oh my gosh, I keep getting beat up on rate, or I keep losing because of they're dropping their fees? How do you respond to that person?
Yeah, I'm all about competition. Right? Sports is my thing. Yeah. Sports is your thing. If there were no competition, we wouldn't go out and get it.
It gets boring.
It would. if we're the Yankees of the 1930s, right? And we're winning every World Series, it's really hard to come to work every day and get motivated. That is motivation to me. That iBuyer out there, it's a disruptor in the industry, and we're gonna have to adapt as the traditional quote unquote side of the real estate industry. But it's always, we have such a advantage over those. We're local, right? Yep. People want, this is the biggest decision they're going to make in their life, maybe 2 or 3 times on average, but a lot of times just once, right? And we deal with a lot of first-time buyers. I do personally, and my gosh, the education that needs to go on there, it's really hard to get that from a call center. Every time they call somebody, they're getting somebody different, right? Yeah. They know that they can call, that they can email at 9 o'clock at night, like we talked about, and they're probably going to get a response. That doesn't happen in a call center. They also know, hey, I want to drop in and drop off this doc and maybe ask you one question. Absolutely. Hey, here's the addresses at the bottom of every one of my emails.
Yeah, I love that. Austin, thank you so much for your time here today, man. It's been a pleasure visiting with you. And
thank you, sir.
We'll take the conversation further moving on. So that's it for right now, everybody. We really appreciate your time, and be sure to review, subscribe, join us on social, all of that stuff if this was helpful. And that's it for today. I'm Ryan Herget.
I'm Austin Larr. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.